Good evening, and thank you to the 12th grade students, parents, and high school counselors for joining us for the Knowledge at KPT Admissions 101 workshop series. Today, we have a very special guest who's going to be presenting the workshop session. We have Ms. Julie Lovelace, who is the Associate Director of International Admissions from Worcester Polytechnic Institution based in Massachusetts, USA. The topic session for the day, as you've seen in the outreach campaign and of course on your screen, is studying STEM in the US. And Ms. Julie will be spending the first 30 minutes on the session topic and of course the next 30 minutes on her institution, Worcester Polytechnic Institute. Moving forward, please ensure to post all your questions in the Q&A box and not in the chat box, so that it will be very easy for Ms. Julie to locate all your questions, and as I'm sure she would love to answer all your questions towards the end of the session. And we should be taking time out to have all your questions answered. So please don't worry. Please feel free to keep posting all your questions in the Q&A box. Having said that, Ms. Julie, thank you so much for joining us for the program today. We know it's early in the morning. We truly appreciate your kind time and support. I'm now going to hand over the stage and the microphone to you for the presentation ahead. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much for the lovely introduction, and thank you all for tuning in to hear a little bit more about studying STEM in the United States. You guys heard my introduction, Julie Lovelace from WPI, or Worcester Polytechnic Institute in Massachusetts. So I'll just jump right into the presentation. Hi. So, you know, I think a lot of times when people think about STEM, when they think about science and technology and engineering and math, they tend to think about these kind of large scale STEM projects, things like Atlas robots or SpaceX launching personal rockets into orbit. They think about oil refineries or large scale civil engineering projects like suspension bridges. They think about kind of modern technology, all of the smartphone applications, virtual reality, and things like that. But the thing that I've been most surprised about is working at WPI and getting to see what else STEM looks like when college students are studying it in the US. So a couple examples that I've really enjoyed hearing about from WPI students. First of all, this sea turtle. This sea turtle is from an aquarium in Florida. Her name is Lola, and she was in the aquarium because she had lost a flipper in a boating accident. And there's really no solution for sea turtles that have lost a flipper. They either get lucky and get scooped up by an aquarium, or they often can't survive in the wild. Especially if a sea turtle loses more than one flipper in boating accidents. So WPI students, some of our biomedical engineers, as well as our mechanical engineers, developed the first of its kind biomimetic flipper. So essentially an artificial limb for a sea turtle. And it gave Lola a whole new chance at life. So that's something I think that's kind of heartwarming that STEM can look like. STEM can also look like this. This is a picture of one of our fire protection engineering labs at WPI. So not a type of engineering that people are typically familiar with, but fire protection engineering is all about helping figure out how to fight fires more effectively, or how to make fire burn more quickly, or how to make clothing that protects us better against fire. So when you think about the early part of 2020, I know the wildfires in Australia were really devastating and in the news a lot, but fire protection engineering is a field that a lot of times students aren't even aware of, that they can go into and really make a positive impact on people's lives. I also wanted to show this kind of low-res picture of type of energy. So most people have heard of wind energy, right? We've seen those giant wind turbines all around the world that generate lots of large-scale wind energy. But we have a professor at WPI who's working on this concept of kite energy. So just like you can see families flying kites in the parks in the summer and the spring, we can use those same kites to harness energy on a smaller scale than a wind turbine, but a kite is much less expensive, right? There's so many communities all over the world that could benefit from a wind turbine, but financially it's not possible. But those communities often do have the resources for smaller scale kite energy collection. And then I'll also show you this news article. WPI got a little bit of attention for this a couple of years back, where WPI scientists basically transformed a leaf of spinach into beating heart tissue. So they stripped the plant cells using a solution and they left a cellulose frame. It looked like a clear spinach leaf. Heart muscles were seeded into the leaf, and then after 5 days, they started beating. So the vascular structure of plants and animals is similar enough that the cellulose from plants is compatible with humans. So the hope is that different plants can be used as the vein system, and this can help better filter blood to damaged tissue in human hearts. But some really cool science and engineering research projects happening at WPI. I wanted to talk a little bit about, some of the common majors that you might study in the United States and kind of the types of research that you would be doing. So I'm going to give examples from my university, WPI, but of course, anywhere that you study STEM in the United States, you're going to have the possibility to do large-scale hands-on research projects. So I wanted to kind of show you from that, high school concept of, maybe what a mechanical engineer does, all the way through to your undergrad research and the forms that could take. So I'll start with computer science, right? Computer science is one of our top fields at WPI, with more and more growth every year. We recently hired 13 new computer science faculty at WPI because of the huge growth in that field. It's an incredibly popular major to study in the United States because of the jobs after graduation. So we typically have about 100% of our students after graduation are either in graduate school or working full-time in a computer science position, and they make our highest starting salaries of any major. So typical starting salary for somebody who studies STEM is right around $72,000 a year. But somebody who studies computer science, it can be around $85,000 a year for the average starting salary. So that's one of the reasons it's such a popular major. I have the NBA draft logo here because I wanted to tell you about a cool computer science project that some of our students worked on, including an international student from Australia who told us about the project in pretty great detail. So our students worked to look at the NBA draft information. They analyzed existing basketball player performance metrics. They generated new metrics to provide context behind those player statistics. And then using those metrics, they created a chart quantifying the value of each NBA draft pick. So their end goal was to create a machine learning program that can better predict how likely a college athlete is to be drafted into the NBA. And it was just a really cool program where the students that worked on it were really passionate about basketball, and they knew that there's a lot of uncertainty with which athletes are successful enough to get picked for the NBA draft. So they tried to use technology to better help us understand that. I also wanted to show you a little bit about aerospace engineering. WPI is really well known for aerospace engineering because the man who invented the rocket, Robert Goddard, was a WPI alumni back around the the early 1900s. And so we've always had a strong program in aerospace engineering. And to give you a couple of examples of, you know, if you're going to go and study aerospace engineering in the United States, the types of research that you might be doing in that field. So the picture on the right of the screen is two WPI students working on a drone. We have lots of drone research going on at the university, but my favorite drone, if it's possible to have a favorite drone, my favorite drone project that I heard about recently was we had a couple of students working with a company in China to create a refrigerated drone. So a small drone, but with a refrigerated compartment. Why would we ever need a refrigerated compartment in a drone? Well, that company in China needed to deliver medicine to kind of remote villages in China that didn't always have consistent road access. So WPI students were in their senior year, aerospace engineers worked with that company to be able to deliver a final project that met their specifications. We also have other students working on satellite projects. So drones tend to be what we call more aeronautical engineering. They're staying within this Earth's orbit. But WPI also has an astronautical engineering program where you're focusing on satellites and rockets and things that do go into space. So my favorite satellite project recently was we had a few students, we actually had an alumni who gave us a gift, and that gift was an old satellite. When you're a STEM-focused university, I think you get some unique gifts from your alumni. But one of our alumni gave us an old satellite. It was the size of a sedan, and he wanted to see what WPI students could do with that satellite. So they've rebuilt it and redesigned it. Took it apart, put it all back together on a much smaller and more high-tech scale. So it's currently the size of a basketball, about 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters. And the next plan for the satellite is to launch it into low Earth orbit. It will be WPI's first satellite, and a really great resource for years to come for students in our aerospace engineering program to work on. Also wanted to talk about biomedical engineering. I already told you a little bit about the biomimetic flipper for the sea turtle, but there's lots of other really creative solutions happening at universities in biomedical engineering. So we had, the reason I have a picture of an adorable dog here is because a couple of years ago, we had some of our biomedical engineering students working on a device that could help veterinary surgeons operate on dogs' knees. So I didn't know this, but dogs can hurt their knees just the way that humans can by overexertion or running or jumping or playing too hard. But unlike humans, there's no like real standard surgical procedure for dogs that hurt their knees. So WPI students developed a device that can help veterinary surgeons make more accurate sutures and better repair the dog's knees. They were able to patent that device before they even graduated from WPI. Another cool example that some of our biomedical engineers worked on was they were looking more at tissue engineering. And they wanted to come up with a new way to grow cells. So the way that we grow cells right now is, on a hard plastic petri dish, thousands and thousands of cells at a time. But because the cells have been grown in this artificial environment, when we go to test medicine on them, they don't behave the same way that cells in our bodies behave. So WPI students were looking at, can we find a way to grow cells one at a time in these microscopic cubes of a gelatin-like substance? So the theory behind this project was that if you grow cells in a gelatin subject, gelatin type type matter, then you can control the stiffness of the gelatin, right? So if you want to grow a bone cell, you can use really hard gelatin, and that mimics the environment of the bone. If you want to grow a liver cell, you can use really soft and squishy gelatin, and that mimics the environment of the liver. So the theory is that when we go to test medicine on these cells, they'll behave more accurately, and we'll get a better understanding of how effective the medicine is. For me, what I really loved hearing about from these students in biomedical engineering was that you know, the applications for individualized medicine were really impressive. So these students were saying that, you know, if I get sick and I go to the doctor, do I want the medicine that works best for some people? Or do I want the doctor to be able to take my infected cells, grow them in this artificial environment, test a bunch of medicines on them, and tell me, okay, Julie, here's the medicine that's going to work best for you. So really cool things happening in the field of biomedical engineering, and Massachusetts is a great place to look at any biology related fields, just because we have a lot of universities and we have a lot of hospitals in the state. All right, I wanted to talk a little bit as well about chemical engineering, and I wanted to show you a picture of a drink that we have in the United States called kombucha. I'm not sure if it's popular in India, but it's this health drink. It's a fermented tea that grows a type of bacteria that produces cellulose. So we had WPI chemical engineers often work with, you know, wine or beer. Sometimes they work with whole other industries, things like solar panels. But we had a bunch of chemical engineering students at WPI that looked at kombucha, and they researched whether the bacteria production could be scaled larger, and then the cellulose could be used in making artificial tissue stronger, or making better and more efficient artificial organs. So it had a lot of overlap with biomedical engineering, but this is really a chemical research project. So we had some of our chemical engineers working on that. Also wanted to talk about civil engineering and what that might look like if you study it in the US. So civil engineering is, you know, a field typically associated with building bridges or other large-scale construction projects. In our Department of Civil Engineering at WPI, we actually have two majors, civil engineering, but also architectural engineering. Architectural engineering is a bit more design focused than civil engineering, and they're looking at kind of like the skeleton of the building. You know, where do we put the staircase and the air conditioning and the heating systems to make it run most efficiently. So the first picture that you see on that screen, that kind of crazy looking building, is actually an architectural engineering project. WPI students were contacted by a company in the middle of the United States that asked about growing or creating a vertical greenhouse. So, you know, most of the time when we do farming and we think about farming, we think about this massive amount of land and growing vegetables on a single story. But there's plenty of people who want to grow food and crop production that don't have this massive amount of space. So WPI students designed this first picture, which is that vertical greenhouse. You can see that the glass goes over a lot of the building, so the plants can get a lot of light. But the other thing that the students had to do was create a way for the plants on that very bottom to get as much light as they needed to be able to be successful. So inside that building, there's a pretty complex mechanical system that allows the plants to rotate through the building and get the light that they need. I also put a picture of Tenna, which is a a project that was born out of a civil engineer at WPI and then a business student at a local university, Babson University, Babson College, I think, actually. So the WPI student, he was another international student, Jose from Honduras, and he majored in civil engineering, but he really loved business. And so he created this company called Tenna, which he always would describe as basically the Uber of construction equipment. So when you think about all those large scale construction projects, they often use really expensive machinery, but he tried to create, or he did create, a successful company that can kind of timeshare some of that construction equipment among different construction projects to be able to more successfully kind of finish those projects on time. I'll talk quickly about some of our creative solutions in mechanical engineering. Mechanical engineering is our biggest major at WPI because there's so much you can do as a mechanical engineer. And in fact, a lot of the projects that I already talked about had a mechanical engineer on the team already. So the first picture that you have there is one of our most recent mechanical engineering projects, and it's a haptic speaker for people who are hard of hearing. People who are hard of hearing don't normally utilize speakers, but they can be incredibly helpful. So this speaker, designed for hard of hearing people, creates vibrations on the body whenever there's a sound happening nearby that might require urgent attention. So if there's an alarm that's sounding, the speaker can sense that alarm and kind of buzz the body accordingly to warn the person that there might be something that they need to pay attention to. We also had students working recently on a wind turbine redesign. So some of our mechanical engineers looked at a wind turbine blade, and they used a process called biomimicry to kind of redesign a wind turbine blade. So biomimicry, as you can maybe guess, is when we take a look at things that exist in nature and we try to use them to improve our technology. So when WPI students were looking at this wind turbine blade, they had to find a shape in nature that is similar to a wind turbine blade. And the shape that they found was a humpback whale's fin. So a humpback whale's fin is a similar shape to a wind turbine blade, but it has a key difference. The edge of the whale's fin is covered with these kind of golf ball sized bumps called tubercles, and the tubercles channel water above and below the fin to help the whale move through the water more efficiently. So WPI students thought, can we apply the same concept to a wind turbine blade? They spent some time looking at computer-aided drafting software and designing these aluminum bumps that could be retrofitted to existing wind turbine blades. And in computer testing, it did in fact generate more electricity, and the wind turbine blades were able to move through the air more quickly. So the next year, students continued the project by actually going into the manufacturing phase. And I was really impressed that, you know, they weren't looking at redesigning, like they weren't looking at manufacturing a whole new wind turbine blade. They were looking at simply, you know, manufacturing the little bumps that could be attached to existing wind turbine blades. So good use of resources there. The last STEM field that I'll talk to you about and the types of stuff you could work on in the United States is robotics engineering. I know robotics is growing in popularity in high schools all around the world. And so I want to spread the good news that you can also study it at the college level. WPI was the first school in the US to offer a degree in robotics engineering. And so it's the program itself is only about 10 or 12 years old. So it's still a very new field, but growing really quickly. And there's a lot of important, wonderful work that you can do with robotics, but the picture I chose here was the one we've gotten most attention for. Paul Ventimiglia is the lead on the BattleBots Byte Force team. So I think BattleBots is popular in India, but if you haven't heard of it, it's a television program that is what it sounds like. Robots fight each other. And one of the most winning robots was called Byte Force, led by a WPI team. You can see the WPI logo on the robot right there. And so it's been a really cool way to kind of bring a little more attention to all of the great things that robots can do, because of course the point is not just to fight each other, but we can often send robots into really dangerous situations that we wouldn't want to put a human life at risk, but a robot, we certainly can. So I wanted to kind of wrap up the first part of the presentation by giving you some of the pros of studying STEM in the United States, as well as a couple of the cons. But I think, you know, the United States is a really flexible place. We do not expect 17 and 18-year-olds to have completely mapped out the rest of their lives. So there is almost always flexibility in majors in the United States. It's a good question to ask university representatives when you're talking to them, you know, how easy is it to switch my major? But it tends to be pretty easy in the United States, either between STEM fields or between totally different and unrelated fields. There's also the opportunity in the US to double major. So if there are two things that you're equally passionate about and you're willing to put in the work, there's the opportunity to do double majors. Within most fields of engineering in the United States, there's the opportunity to concentrate on something. So when I talked about mechanical engineering being our biggest major, it's because there's so many different areas of concentration. You can be a mechanical engineer with a concentration in design, or a concentration in materials, or a concentration in biomedical engineering. It's just a really great way to put a little more focus on the degree that you're interested in. And then there's also, in the United States, a lot of opportunities to pursue a master's degree. So at WPI, we have a lot of 5-year bachelor master's combined programs. So it doesn't take you 2 full years to do a master's degree. You can just do it in 1 extra year as part of your undergraduate experience. Yeah, sorry. I also think another pro of studying in the US is just really great facilities, right? If you're looking at STEM-focused universities, they are very interested in being able to give you the best lab equipment and the best resources that they can. The picture that you see there is WPI's newest makerspace. There's 30-something 3D printers, laser cutters, all of that great stuff that our students need to work on some of these science and engineering projects. I also think that in the United States, there tends to be a focus on collaborative problem solving. So when you get out into the real world, I do think that if you've had that experience working as part of a team, you're more attractive to employers. We also, in the United States, you know, you don't just study all day, every day, your major. You stay well balanced by taking classes in social sciences, in life sciences, in humanities, arts. And so you get this set of other skills that help make you more competitive on the job market. I do think that by doing a lot of hands-on projects, you get a lot of soft skills. Our students know how to solve problems that don't have an answer in the back of the textbook because they've been given problems that don't have answers in the back of the textbook. Our students know how to work in good project environments or difficult project environments. And so I do think that our students get a lot of these great soft skills that they can share with employers as well. And speaking of employers, the jobs are there after graduation. It depends a little bit on major. So we always encourage our students to work with our Career Development Center when they are looking at the major that they want, because some majors Like I said, computer science, highest paying, almost every student employed or in graduate school at the time of graduation. Another major might be a little bit different. And so you do want to be selective about that, but I think there's really good opportunities there. And the last slide I'll show you before I switch to talk a little bit more specifically about WPI is some of the negatives, and I'm sure you guys are aware of these things, but the cost of attendance in the United States tends to be pretty high. So I think it's always important to ask about scholarships, to ask about return on investment, to ask about internship opportunities where you can work during your experience at the university. And then I think another thing for students to be aware of is that some companies or some industries have more limited job placement. We do have a lot of students who want to be aerospace engineers, but a lot of aerospace companies in the United States are working on government contracts, and international students can't always work for them. That's changing a little bit as there are more opportunities in the private space industry with companies like Tesla, and they do hire our international students. But you can imagine the number of students who want to work at Tesla is pretty high. So I think it's important to be aware of some of the industries. There are some questions in the Q&A box that I want to answer before I go on to WPI specific information. I'll put the next WPI slide up there now, but so Ritika is asking about, are these opportunities available only to undergraduate, or are they available to graduates or undergraduates or both? And I would say all of the opportunities that I shared today were undergraduate research. So there are even more opportunities when you're a graduate student, but at most small STEM-focused universities, our focus is on the undergraduate student and getting them involved in research opportunities really from their first year. We have another student asking about scholarships and internships for WPI specifically, so I'll talk about that in the WPI set of the presentation. And another student asking, if you switch majors, will this set you back in terms of the length of the degree? Great question. At WPI, all of our bachelor's degrees are 4 years, and they all have the opportunity to switch majors. We don't lock you into any major at any point in time. So the key is kind of switching your major early enough in your undergraduate career to stay on track for that 4-year graduation rate. If you are switching majors between similar fields, it will probably not set you back or take you any extra time at all. So if you switch from mechanical engineering to robotics engineering, well, probably 70% of the coursework is going to be similar enough that it's not going to take you any additional time to graduate. But if you switch from mechanical engineering to biology, very little of the coursework has any overlap. So then it could take you an extra semester or even an extra year to graduate, depending on when you make that switch. So earlier is better, and you'll always have a faculty advisor that can help you. Another question asking about which programs offer that combined bachelor and master's degree. It's really popular in the United States right now, and I would say it's possible for almost any engineering degree and some mathematics, computer science degrees. The fields where it's harder to do a 5-year bachelor master's combined program are the more research intensive majors, things like biology, chemistry, or physics. For that, I would depend on typically that's that 2-year master's program for those life science or physical science fields that require that additional research component. There's another question about from a career job placement point of view, would you recommend STEM students to pursue a bachelor's degree or combine it with a master's program as well? I think it depends a little bit on the industry, whether you need to do a master's degree, and it's always changing. You know, 3 years ago, I would have told you that a biomedical engineer didn't need to do a master's degree. But we are seeing more and more students who are choosing to do that master's degree to be more competitive at the job market. Typically, you know, I said starting salaries around $72,000 for a STEM student with a bachelor's degree. But if you stay on and you do your master's degree, it's usually about $86,000 for the starting salary. So for one extra year, it can make a really big difference in your earnings over your lifetime. There's other industries where you can go into them with a bachelor's degree and that industry may pay you to do your master's degree. So we encourage all our students again to talk to their career development center on campus. And then last question before I move on to the WPI specific stuff is how can undergraduate students pursue a computer science degree together with liberal arts such as political science? And that's great that you have that motivation. I would say there's a lot of ways to do it. You could major in computer science and minor in political science. You could do the opposite, major in political science and minor in computer science. You can double major, or you can just kind of take your elective classes as the thing that's your secondary interest. So most college schedules will have room for a bunch of elective classes. But WPI, you know, even though we don't have a lot of students majoring in a humanities, humanities is our biggest department on campus because all of our students take classes in the humanities. So it's again going back to that flexibility of studying in the US, that there's very few colleges in the US where they're going to hand you the list of all the classes that you need to take to get a computer science degree. More often than not, they'll hand you a general skeleton of a schedule and ask you to fill it in with the classes that are most interesting to you. So with that, I will move on to some of the basics about WPI and just the very basics, where we're located and how many students come to WPI. So we're, like I mentioned, we're in Massachusetts. We're about an hour west of the city of Boston. We're located in the city of Worcester, Massachusetts, which is not a huge tourist destination, but is a great city to be a college student in because it's really convenient and there's a lot of other college students here. And it is a city, so we have great art museums and public transportation and all that good stuff. WPI is known as a STEM-focused institution. We offer 50 different degree programs. Probably 40 of them are in straight STEM fields. And you don't have to come to WPI decided on what you are going to do. You can come totally undecided, knowing that you like science and engineering, but you're just not sure what major is right for you. We are a smaller private school with about 4,500 undergraduate students, another 2,000 graduate students at WPI, and we're 10% international. I think the great thing about WPI is our retention rate. So 95% of our students come back from their first year to second year, which shows you that they feel supported even though they're taking these very challenging classes right from the beginning. What we talk about with prospective students is really the WPI plan. So if you are looking at STEM-focused universities in the United States, I think it's important to ask them what makes them a little bit different. And the WPI plan is what makes us different than some of our other peer schools, schools that do a similar thing to us. So the first thing that's different at WPI is our academic calendar. Most universities in the United States, they have a 14-week fall semester and a 14-week spring semester. In those 14 weeks, you'll typically take 5 or 6 classes at a time. At WPI, we take that 14-week semester and we cut it in half, and we have 4 7-week terms throughout the year, very creatively called A, B, C, and D term. And in each of those terms, you're learning the same amount of information that you would learn in 14 weeks, but you're doing it in 7 weeks because you're only taking 3 classes at a time. And those classes are meeting pretty much every day, Monday through Friday. So our professors really love this schedule because they don't have to spend a lot of time reviewing the information. You were in class yesterday, you did the homework last night, you're back in class this morning, you're ready to go. I think it's beneficial for students because when you think about learning math and science, you know, the more you see it, the less you forget it. So by having you in class every day, it keeps everything really fresh. And our students tend to love the schedule because they're never feeling totally overloaded, right? They're only taking 3 classes. That means on Monday night, they only have 3 homework assignments. Those assignments are due Tuesday, but it's still manageable because they're not trying to juggle 5 or 6 different things. When it's time for final exams, they might not even have exams. If they do have exams, they'll only have 3 final exams. But a lot of times professors might say, okay, let's do a final project or a final research experience. So it gives students a lot of flexibility in their scheduling. And they also like it because they only have 3 hours of class a day. So they have a lot of time to do the homework, but also to get involved in other things on campus. WPI also doesn't have any failing grades. So we say that we have a non-punitive grading policy. We say it's impossible to fail, but it's possible to not pass. So what that means is that we have 3 grades that will appear on your transcript. You could get an A in a class, you could get a B in a class, or you could get a C in a class. If you get less than a C, we call it a no record, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It doesn't appear on your transcript, it doesn't hurt your grade point average, it doesn't hurt your chances of getting a job when you're going for those job interviews in your senior year. It's like you never took the class. So I'll say 2 things about the no record policy. One, the main purpose of the no record policy is to encourage our students to take classes that are outside their comfort zone. You know, if you're a student who's studying biology, but you want to take a coding class, go for it. The best thing that can happen is you're going to learn a new skill and maybe want to add a minor or an area of concentration. The worst thing that can happen is you'll get that no record and it won't hurt your grades and it won't show up on your transcript. You just took a class and it didn't work out. The other reason that we have that no record system is because our students are going on to do important work. So if a course is required for their major, we want them to really understand that material. You know, these are students who are going on to build bridges and to design medical devices. We want to make sure that they really understand the material before they move in to the more advanced classes. So if you don't pass a class that is required for your major the first time, you do have to take it again, but typically that second time students do much better. I've already talked about flexible curriculum options, but that is a key thing that we talk about at WPI, that we don't have any classes that you have to take. Instead, we really let you put together your schedule the way that you want it so that you're taking classes that you are invested in. The project-based curriculum, you guys already have all this inside information because I gave you the example of probably 20 different projects happening at WPI. But I will say that we are known as a leader in project-based learning at WPI because we've been doing it since the 1970s. We actually teach other universities how to teach project-based learning. And for our students, they get the opportunity to do projects in pretty much every class that they take at WPI, but they also do these 4 larger scale projects called the Great Problem Seminar, the Humanities and Arts Project, the IQP or Interactive Qualifying Project, and the MQP or the Major Qualifying Project. So the Great Problem Seminar is a first-year project experience where you study about one of the world's great problems, something like climate change or pollution or food scarcity or clean water or energy. You study what is the problem, how have we tried to solve it, what's been effective, what's not been effective, and then you work with a small project team and try to solve part of that problem. So that wind turbine example that I gave you of the bio of the students who looked at the humpback whale and redesigned a wind turbine blade, that was a great problem seminar experience. So something that students did in their very first year at WPI. The Humanities and Arts Project is actually a series of 5 classes. So every WPI student takes 5 humanities classes spaced throughout their 4 years at WPI. And then your Humanities and Arts Project is a 6th kind of capstone to those classes. So if you focused a lot of time in your humanities taking theater classes, then your 6th capstone project might be performing in a play or directing a play or writing a play. If you took a lot of humanities classes in music, same thing. Your capstone project might be performing a piece of music that you wrote or designing music for a video game or something like that. If you spent your time in humanities doing more traditional humanities like English or philosophy or theology or something like that, you might do a large scale research paper for your capstone project, but it's just a way to stay balanced with the STEM fields. I do want to talk a little bit more about the IQP, and I'll do that on the next slide. The MQP is really what I gave you most of the examples of studying STEM in the US from. So all of those projects that I talked about were major qualifying projects that WPI students had done to be able to graduate from WPI, but also have a really meaningful research experience. The IQP is a little bit different. So the IQP usually happens in a student's junior year at WPI. And all students who are admitted to WPI get up to $5,000 to do a global project. WPI has project centers at all of those little red dots that you can see on the map there. Where we send students for about 7 weeks, for about 1 term, with a group of 20 or 25 WPI students, plus at least 1 faculty member. They travel, they land in that country, and they break down into smaller project teams for their interactive qualifying project, and they do a project that's important to the community. So in Australia, they might be working on wildfire prevention alert systems. In Hong Kong, they might be working on reducing single-use plastic takeout silverware from all the restaurants there. In Costa Rica, they might be working on sustainable fishing projects. In Iceland, they might be working on light pollution in national parks. So really cool opportunity to do a project that's not specific to your major, but is going to use skills from all different skill sets for your junior year interactive qualifying project. I think I've already touched on this as one of the biggest benefits of studying STEM in the United States is just really great opportunities after you graduate. So at WPI in particular, hundreds of companies come to recruit our students. This year they did it virtually, but they still come nonetheless and are still really at the forefront of hiring these days. Lots of opportunities for internships and co-ops starting from your very first year at WPI. We have a really highly ranked career services program, and our students do very well financially after graduation. I told you a little bit about the city of Worcester, and I won't spend too much time on this slide besides to say, you know, you can see from the picture here, it's a small city, but it is still a city. There's a central downtown area with tons of great restaurants. They're building a new baseball stadium because the Red Sox minor league affiliate is going to be playing in Worcester starting next year. So really good things happening in the city. We're also super convenient to Boston. Like I said, it's about an hour by train, and the train runs 20 times a day. So if you have friends in the city of Boston, really easy access to get there. But there's a ton of college students in the city of Worcester. WPI, Clark University, and College of the Holy Cross are the most well-known universities, but there's about 12 universities here altogether. And we have, you know, kind of nice, it's nice, you're in a city, but you don't feel like you're in a city. If you want to go to the beach, it's about an hour. If you want to go skiing, it's another hour in a different direction, but really central location, I would say. This slide has a lot of information. So I'm gonna trust that you have good counseling, as I know your counselors organized this presentation. and they can help you understand some of this. But basically, excuse me, WPI has a lot of deadlines, and you can choose the one that works right for you. We did not intend to have so many, but once coronavirus happened, we wanted to make sure we gave students as much time as possible to prepare their applications and apply to the university. And so that's why we have 5 different possible application deadlines. So you can decide what's best for you. Early decision is going to be a binding application. So if you apply early decision and you're admitted, you must come to WPI. We are not expecting, this is our first year to have early decision. We're not expecting tons of students to do early decision, but if you know that WPI is the one for you, you can do it. Early action is our most popular deadline round, early action 1. So if you're in a good spot come November 1st and you know that you're interested in WPI and want to see if you have a chance, go ahead and apply early action. But all the deadlines are there for you. We're going to ask you for 3 to 4 required items. So the common application with your common application essay, copy of your high school transcript, 2 letters of recommendation, and then proof of English proficiency. And proof of English proficiency is always tricky in India, but basically if your high school is teaching you in English and you are communicating in English for the majority of your day, we can provide an English proficiency waiver. You just have to email us and request that waiver, and we'll be happy to provide it. But if you are taking the TOEFL or the IELTS for another school's admissions, I would certainly encourage you to send it to WPI as well. WPI is SAT, ACT optional. We have been for 14 years. We were the first nationally ranked STEM school to drop the SAT requirement. So you do not have to submit it if you do not want to. And then we offer personal interviews. You can sign up right on our website. I'll give you a barcode on the last slide if you want to get more information from WPI. And then we also accept interviews through some external organizations like Duolingo or Initial View. This is generally what we're looking for in our applicant pool. You know, we want you to be challenging yourself in math and science. We want you to be doing well in your high school. So are you getting really strong grades in those math and science classes that you're taking? If you submit testing, our average scores are listed on this slide. But I will say that WPI really emphasizes these qualities at the top of the screen. We are really looking for creative problem solvers. We're looking for students who want to help make the world a better place. And we look to what are your recommenders saying about you? What do you do outside of school to help get a sense of that information? And then we'll start, we'll wrap things up here with scholarship and financial aid information. So of course there's summer internship and co-op opportunities that can help pay for college, but WPI is very generous for international students as well. 97% of our international students receive some financial assistance. So it could be merit-based scholarship, need-based scholarship, or a combination of both. We require that students, if they are applying for financial aid, they submit the CSS profile. The CSS profile is our financial aid application for international students. And it's important to know that we don't have any scholarship that is more than the full tuition. That's our most competitive scholarship that we give to 1 or 2 students every year. So the majority of students need to be able to demonstrate that they can pay for housing, food, books, health insurance, etc. And that's at least $22,000 a year. So I will pause there. I will give you this last slide. If you do want to scan that barcode, it'll prompt you. Ooh, hi. Let me pull that back up. Sorry, guys. If you do want to scan that barcode, it will have you enter your information and we can keep you up to date on what's happening at WPI. Then I also wanted to answer some of the final questions that I can see in the Q&A chat. So a student asks, if I apply as undeclared, what additional application documents am I required to submit? Is there any disadvantage to applying undeclared? And I think that's a good question to ask every university that you're thinking of applying to. I can tell you at WPI, your major has no effect on your admissions decision. So all of our majors have the same entrance requirements, and then all of our majors are equally as competitive for admission, including undeclared. The reason for that is because, like I said, you can change your major at any time at WPI. So we don't want to, if we're admitting you to mechanical engineering, you could switch as soon as you get to campus to something totally different. So there's no problem in applying undeclared. It absolutely will not hurt you or help you in the admissions process. Someone asked about the optional e-term, June to July. That is our summer semester, essentially. I believe you can take 2 to 4 classes during the summer session at WPI. So if you did fall behind a little bit or you wanted to get ahead a little bit, the summer session can be a good option for you. I know this year it was more popular than ever because students were trying to take advantage of, you know, a summer at home and take some of those classes and get some of those credits out of the way. The tricky thing with summer session is there are no scholarships or financial aid available for it. So if you're okay paying that money out of pocket, definitely go for it. Someone wants to learn how many undergraduate and international undergraduate students are on campus. Yeah, so the total undergraduate population is about 4,500. And then since we're about 10% international, it's about 450 international students at WPI as undergraduates. I will say China, India, and Vietnam usually make up the top 3 spots at WPI in terms of citizenships that are represented. But because we give financial aid, we actually get really great diversity of citizenship. We have a lot of students from Central and South America, from the Caribbean, from Greece, from the Middle East, the list goes on. We have a question: if students do not pursue the optional semester in the summer, what do they do in the summer? And that's great. They'll typically do internships or research projects in the summer. I would say internships or on-campus employment are the 2 most common. So internships are specific to the industry that you want to be in. You know, if you're majoring in electrical engineering, you'll probably do an internship in electrical engineering. Most of our summer internships are paid about $20 an hour. You work 40 hours a week and they last anywhere from 8 to 12 weeks. So it can be a great way to save money over the summer. There's also a lot of on-campus positions. Our campus is still open even in the summers. So we have students who work in the admissions office over the summer and give tours. They work with some of our summer programs over the summer to help high school students who are coming to campus for a couple of weeks. So there's tons of opportunities over the summer, but we'll give you whatever guidance you need to not waste your summer. Another question: will students be able to select the global projects country of choice, or does WPI select this? That is a great question, and how it works is kind of like an application process. You can review what all the different projects in all those different countries are focusing on, and you can apply to your top 5. I think we typically will guarantee that students get one of their top 3, but every now and then one project center is crazy popular and we might have to give you your 4th or 5th choice. Sometimes there's an interview for the projects if the professor has really limited spots and they want to make sure they have the right people. But typically it's kind of filled as you go, and we see really good diversity in those projects globally. Somebody asks, what are your letters of recommendation and essay requirement when it comes to the Common App? So I have good news. We're a STEM-focused school, so we're not going to ask you to do a lot of different essay topics like some liberal arts colleges might. Our students don't tend to love the essay component. So we just require that main Common Application essay, which is a topic of your choice. Students usually tell a story from their lives that shows some kind of growth. And then we have one final short essay which essentially is asking what makes you a good fit for WPI. I think the word limit on that is about 250 words, so it's not going to be this crazy long answer. And hopefully I gave you a lot of good info in this presentation about what would make you a good fit for WPI. For recommendations, we ask for two, one from the guidance counselor or school official if your school doesn't have a guidance department, and then one from a teacher in the high school. We typically see math and science teachers, but we don't limit it to that. Students can send a recommendation from any teacher that they would like. Question about what date do you release the early decision admissions by? And I'm gonna refer back to my slide there. Oh, hi, we didn't put it on there. That's why you're asking that question. So I'm pretty sure it is just before the December holiday break. So I wanna say it's December 20th for early decision. And then for early action, we promise to get it to you by the mid-January, but we will do our best to get it to you as early as possible. This is our first year offering early decision. And again, we're just not sure how much time it's gonna take us. So my hope is that we would be able to get both early decision and early action admissions decisions to you before our winter holiday, which starts typically around December 20th. And then somebody asking if SAT is required for scholarship, and I can say no, we are truly test optional. Submitting the SAT does not give you any advantage in terms of scholarship or admissions decision. Another question about scholarship amounts, which is really great, and whether we require separate applications for scholarships. So the scholarships, I would say they range from about $10,000 a year up to probably about $25,000 a year for true merit scholarships. On top of that, need-based financial aid, I would say can traditionally go up to about $35,000 a year total. So I would say that tends to be one of our highest financial aid awards, which is, you know, more than half tuition. But there still is, you know, we're still expecting some significant family support for those students who don't get the full tuition scholarship. We don't have any extra applications for our scholarships at WPI though, so that is good. Anybody who's admitted to WPI is automatically considered for a merit-based scholarship. Student asks, what are your minimum requirements for qualifying for admissions and scholarship? And again, no minimums. I gave you kind of, going on with this. Sorry, I'm going to stop screen sharing. I gave you kind of our average admitted student information. And so if you're kind of in that range or higher, I think you can expect to receive some scholarship from WPI, but there's no minimum requirements for the scholarship or for admission. We're a school that uses a holistic application review process. And someone asking about how does the admissions process work for the bachelor master's? Great question. So you don't have to decide now is the good news. Students usually will decide in their sophomore or junior year that they want to pursue that 5th year master's degree. It's a short application and it's largely based on GPA. If your GPA is in good standing for the department, you'll be admitted to the master's program. And you'll usually be admitted in your junior year. So then in your senior year, you start taking classes that double count for your bachelor's degree and your master's degree. And that's how you're able to wrap it up in just that one additional year. Someone is asking if there are TOEFL waivers for IB students. Absolutely. Again, it doesn't happen automatically, so you do need to send an email to the admissions office, and your counselor can definitely share my contact information with anybody after the session. I work with all our applicants from India, so I'm happy to be a resource, but we can absolutely waive that requirement for you. We just need you to submit the application, and then we can do it for IB students. And then if time permits, could you share information on housing and meal plans? And I know we are kind of at the end of our session, but housing and meal plans is important. So WPI is a residential campus. All of our first year students live on campus with the exception of this year where we're trying to make accommodations because of COVID-19. But in a traditional year, yes, all first year students would live on campus, doubles, triples, quads for housing arrangements with a very few number of singles. After your first year, it's up to you. If you want to stay on campus, you can. If you want to move off campus, you can do that as well, because there are a lot of off-campus opportunities. And then for students who live on campus, they traditionally have a meal plan. The meal plan will cover either 14 meals per week or 19 meals per week, depending on how often you want to eat in the dining hall. And then there will always be a couple of like flexible dollars every semester that you can use for some alternative options, some of the local restaurants or the more like cafe or pub style options on campus. I think there are a ton of food opportunities on campus, but I do know students are always missing their home cuisine. So I think it's great. Our dining services does a really good job. They have kind of taste of the world, and they do a different country or a different country's cuisine every few days or every week at WPI. So you get a chance to, you know, at least once a semester have a taste of food from home, but there's some great local restaurants that do a lot of international cuisine as well. You guys had awesome questions. I didn't know what to expect, but those were all really relevant, important questions. And so I want to thank you so much for that and turn it back over.
Thank you so much, Julie. Julie, I just want to say, I think there's one more question.
Oh, sorry.
No problem. I'll just wait here. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, I see. I just came in and I missed it. What information would be available regarding campus safety for female undergraduate students? Again, a really important question. We do have a really safe campus. We are in a city, but like I said, and like you saw in that aerial photo, doesn't necessarily feel like you're in the city. There's a lot of green space, a lot of residential communities around the campus. So I do think it is a very safe campus, especially considering that we're in a city. But we have a great campus safety police force. They are trained by the state of Massachusetts. So they're real police officers. Their typical response time is less than a minute for any campus emergency. And there are always police officers or other campus representatives or paid people at WPI who can walk female students home if you're walking late at night and you just don't want to do it by yourself. There's also a local shuttle run by WPI that can give you a ride anytime between 4 p.m. and like 2 a.m. Within a mile of campus. So we want to make sure you're safe and aware that you're in a city and taking all the right precautions.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Julie. We really appreciate your kind time in sharing, so much information in depth about, of course, why studying STEM in the US. Of course, as the counselors know, me, and of course, as you may know, Julie, as I shared, I've studied in the US, and just the entire experience of having a hands-on degree combined with liberal arts is just another experience, and it just makes you into a whole-rounded individual, like you correctly shared on your screen. So thank you so much for taking a kind time and spending the hour with the 12th grade students, parents. Of course, as I said, it's early in the morning. We know admission counselors have a very busy schedule, and admission directors have a very hectic schedule. So thank you so much for that. And to the 12th grade students, parents, and high school counselors, thank you so much for giving us your kind time and joining us this late in the evening. We know it's around 7 p.m. here in India, so we truly appreciate your kind time, especially after a long day of school, to join us. I'll be sharing the video recording of this session, counselors, with you, along with the email address for Miss Julie as well, so that these conversations can continue well after this program is over. Of course, that's what we all want. And most importantly, it's for students who were not able to attend this evening session, please do share the recordings with them and their parents as well, so that they can learn more about the session topic, about the institution, Worcester Polytechnic Institute as well, and be in touch directly with Ms. Julie for their questions regarding the programs or applications, anything it may be. But thank you so much to the students, parents, and counselors. Thank you so much, Ms. Julie, once again for being present here today. We wish you a wonderful day. Please take care, stay safe. Counselors, please take care, stay safe. Wish you all a wonderful evening here in India. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.